I let that one problem, ironically enough, stop me from so many. I feel like this is the cheesiest tagline for your show, but I let that one major problem get in the way of so much other profit. When you're solving the city's problems, when you're solving the issues that they have in their community, they're gonna bend rules for you and do things for you that they might not do for other people because you're solving their problem. We were at a highest leverage point I've ever been when they announced and I had a clear plan out, but when they announced it, I had a 6-month pregnant wife. My dream house was being built and didn't look like it was going to be done in time. Our house had already sold. We were homeless for 2 weeks. I think I had over 20 properties and I was homeless for 2 weeks. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Problems or profits to me is really just a life philosophy. You know, people talk about abundance and scarcity oriented mindsets, and I think it even extends beyond that. And problems and profits really is about how do you interpret everything in the world, right? The moment you encounter something, are you immediately looking towards the negative or the positive? Are you trying to find the light side or the upside in any situation? And so in today's podcast, we're going to be sitting down with Kyle Ford, who's mortgage broker. He's a real estate investor, doing all kinds of crazy things at a very young age as well. And really excited just to kind of explore with Kyle the problems and profits he's encountered on his entrepreneurial journey. Hey, Kyle, how's it going?
Hey, Matt, doing well. Thanks for having me, Matt. Good to see you, Rebecca.
Good to see you as well. Yeah. So we'll get started here, Kyle, with a few warm-up questions. So First warm-up question, what is the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
What is the most expensive thing I ever broke? Geez, that's a tough question. Most expensive thing I've ever broken. I mean, I've dinged up a couple cars. I tore apart my 10-plex. I don't. That's a tough question. I don't know. Geez, you caught me off guard there, Rebecca. I don't know. I guess my car. It crashed up a car.
What kind of car was it?
My 2001 Pontiac Sunfire. I dinged it in a McDonald's post pretty good.
Is it safe to guess this wasn't this year?
No, that was a long time ago. Most expensive thing I've ever broke. I don't know. I guess the car.
I think that makes it better that you were digging it up in a McDonald's parking lot. It's a great story.
There's even more to the story there. Their milkshake machine was broken 3 days in a row, and I pulled in to get the milkshake because they said it would be back, and it wasn't. So I got pissed off and I slammed it in reverse and smoked the pull. I don't know what's worse, that I went to McDonald's 3 days in a row or crashed my car on the third day.
Well, I appreciate the transparency, Kyle. Our second warm-up question is, if you had $1 million in 24 hours and the money disappears after 24 hours, what would you do with it?
Geez, guys, these are way different questions than you normally ask me, Matt. If the money disappears in 24, I don't want to sound cheesy here, but like in all seriousness, I'd probably spend it on mentorship, being with somebody that could teach me something in that 24 hours that would stick beyond the actual financial. Some type of if you will, wishing for 3 more wishes from the genie. Something that could stick with me longer than just the 24 hours. Sounds a little cheesy maybe, but yeah.
Do you know what mentor you would choose if you had to?
Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a classic. I don't know. $1 million. That's a lot of money. I feel
you can buy a lot of mentorship for that.
I was gonna say, I think it's like $100,000 for Tony's top package.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure they might have a crazy top tier that's $1 million, but yeah, there's not many gurus where you probably get to have a little bit of a variety pack there.
Yeah. I think I could get a few in the same room for $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, final warm-up question here is, Kyle, why are you you?
Why? Jesus, guys, this is killing me. These are good questions. Why am I me? Fuck, I have no idea. That's a deep question. Why am I me? I honestly don't know, Rebecca. I got to think about that. These are
All right.
Matt, you normally ask me about financing, and I can go like this.
Yeah, we like to mix it up here a little bit with problems or profits. So I'm sure we'll get to explore why you're you throughout this entire interview. So I'll maybe pick it up here, Kyle, and just ask, how did you get to where you are, right? Like, how did you end up being a serial real estate investor, having the mortgage broker business, teaching, educating people yourself? How did you land here?
Yeah, so I would say out of high school, a lot of my friends were going to college and university. I went to college for 6 weeks, and I remember them telling me that if you leave college, your starting wage, from this program should be $45,000, and after 3 years, you should be able to get to $70,000. Well, I was working full time at a major electronics retailer at that time, and I was making $50,000 a year when I was 18 selling TVs. I took a pay cut to go to college. And right there, and I'm sitting there listening to the professor say, you're going to make 45 when you're done. I was like, I'm already making 50 and I'm on track to management. So right there, the college route, not that it's not great for a lot of people, I decided to drop out and I went into sales. 3 years into sales, I ended up selling one of the VPs at Sun Life, a TV, and he got me into financial advising. So became a financial advisor at 22 and really started to learn about money and economics and financial planning. But also started to really not like what I was seeing. The people that I thought were the most successful and had the highest net worth and I thought were set for retirement, I started looking up the skirt of their retirement plan, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So from there, I started seeking better information. So started looking in the I guess I'll call it the private education mentor space, and seeking people who are having success and creating wealth, not only what I felt was in a more secure method, but faster and achieving financial freedom faster. So that's where I got my start and learning about real estate was in the financial space, learning what people were being told to do and seeing that it wasn't really working and that there had to be a better way. So that's where I got into private education, real estate, learning about how to invest. And, the first thing I thought I needed to do was buy a house and flip it. Flipping's a great strategy, but not where I started, right? I did a bunch of other strategies specifically around rental properties when I started. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Kyle. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper because now being the age I am, I've experienced a lot of this, but oftentimes when I'd hear people talking about those crazy happenstance mentorships, it sounds really frustrating. Okay, cool. I'll go sell TVs and then magically some dude's just going to fall into my lap and change my life. But at the same time, I've actually experienced those sort of moments too. And I think for someone that's really just starting out on the journey, it can be easy to think that oh, that was the lottery or, it'd be impossible to replicate it. But I imagine that there's probably a bunch of false starts or other opportunities. And it probably wasn't like this guy just literally saw you were special and then decided to do everything he could to change your life. There probably was a two-way street there. Do you mind just kind of talking about how that actually evolved and developed?
Yeah, I was trying to do the 30-second elevator pitch there. But there was many opportunities before this that were presented in the when I was in the sales space, and a lot of MLM type businesses and 100% commission type roles, solar. There was all of this people that approached me in that role. So it was putting myself in a sales position, putting myself in a professional spot that these opportunities came to me. And I'll tell you, this guy, before he offered me my job, was probably the customer I hated the most. He was not a guy that I enjoyed dealing with. It wasn't this wholesome, sales dealing. It was 3 days of hell before he bought the damn TV, where he pushed me and he was testing me. And I know that, but he was testing me. So yeah, it certainly wasn't like the silver sneaker left out in the parking lot that was picked up type story. It was a lot more than that.
Yeah, and it's important to be paying attention to those opportunities as well, because then maybe now you've experienced a bit on the other side of the mentorship spectrum, Kyle. But there's times that I feel like I left the door open, and then you don't see the person take the opportunity, right? And you're like, did I really have to coax you into like, I thought that it was enough just to leave a back door open for you, and that I wanted to see that motivation, right? Like similar to another type of test oftentimes, right? I think people will ask for a piece of advice, and I'm curious to hear how you approach this. I'll often give them an answer, and then I'm very curious to find out, like a month later, did you read the book I recommended, right? Like, did you watch the video I told you to watch? Did you sign up for the course I told you to sign up for? Because again, it's oftentimes like, I need that feedback loop to believe in you, right? And I'm sure that mentor that you were dealing with need the feedback loop of seeing, like, is he a serious sales guy, right? Like, will he put up with this shit? Will he, like, is he focused on getting the sale, or is he only getting easy commissions here?
Yeah, it was 100% exactly that. It was the financial planning was a long-term road, and he wanted to see if I could stick with him for the 3 days that he was putting me through and jump through his hoops. And very much now, I still get calls from people all the time, hey, I see what you're doing in real estate. I want to do it. Tell me what to do. Well, the first answer, they're like, I'm looking at this property. I'm like, okay, well, that's not the first thing you need to do. The first thing you need to do isn't just look at a property. What's your plan? What's your goal? Who are you talking to? Who's on your team? Where are you looking? Does it make sense? Does that property, does that asset class even fit into your business model? And they're like, well, we just want to buy properties. Give us a realtor. Like that's not helping you guys. You gotta go back to get some help, get somebody teaching you and mentoring you to show you what is possible. And even more than that, I say this all the time, there's 100 different great ways to invest in real estate, but if your investments aren't achieving your long-term goals, you're spinning your tires. So many people want to invest in pre-construction condos. Not a bad investment, not my personal thing, but not a bad investment. But then I ask them, what are you trying to do? They're like, replace my income. Okay, so you're trying to replace your income buying pre-construction condos? That just doesn't line up. We got to be doing the right investments to match the right goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that you focused on that, Kyle, and the why behind your actual goal and actually understanding that. So how do you actually identify what your goals are, and how do you recommend that somebody goes about doing that?
I guess I kind of start from the end, and I'm big on manifestation and seeing the end goal and seeing where I want to be. But for me, it's in the beginning, it was all just about money. How many commas are in my bank account? How many zeros are on the end? But as you start to develop wealth, it's the number of commas isn't as important as your time, right? So yes, I want wealth, and yes, I want capital, and I want a nice car, and I want the vacations and the homes. But I also, I got an 8-month-old child. I want to be able to take him to school every morning. I want to be able to pick him up and go to the sports events and do those type of things. So not only just the money, but the visualizing what I want in my life and how I want my day-to-day to look in 3, 5, 10 years, 20 years, grandchildren, whatever that may be. I want specific, I really want to visualize what my life is and do investments that I believe are going to feed that lifestyle.
Yeah,
absolutely. I really appreciate that for sure. And one thing that you had kind of touched on there was that pathway that you had taken in pursuing that mentorship, and then you realized that pathway wasn't right for you. So what was the trigger, and what made you realize that it wasn't now aligned with the direction that you wanted to go in? You
mean like when I went the financial planning route and then
yeah.
So a great example of that is that the person that introduced me to financial planning in the beginning, it was all sunshine and roses and lollipops, but he was working 90 hours a week. He was working nonstop, 24 hours, never with his wife, never with his kid, and he was earning a great income, but he wasn't living the lifestyle that I wanted. He was grinding it out in the office, away from his family, away from his friends. And there's nothing wrong with hard work. I still probably work 90 hours a week, but I have the ability to turn that off when I want to because of the investments that I made today. Part of the other thing that pivoted for me was really just my disbelief in the current financial system and the current financial planning model. It wasn't so much the mentor that I pivoted from. He was a good guy and wanted to help me, but he was mentoring me in the traditional financial planning model. Pay your mortgage off, put your money in your RRSP, save for a rainy day. And I just didn't think that model works for the modern person and the modern family trying to get ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely it's something that I've been talking about recently a lot that I won't spend a lot of time on my soapbox with, but it's important to understand, at least from my perspective, two people can take the exact same action and I can applaud one person and I will denounce the other depending upon why they did it, right? Like if one person becomes an expert on Toronto condos and studies the market intricately and can name every builder and understands, the pre-assignment clauses and all that and decides to buy a pre-construction condo as an investment, I'm like, that was a great investment. And if someone buys it blindly, I'm like, that was a terrible investment. They might buy the exact same condo unit in the exact same building, and yet it's actually understanding the why behind it that's actually really driving whether it made sense or not. So Kyle, kind of taking this in a different direction, I'd love to just explore, you've had a few different iterations of the salesperson role or job, going from, the electronics to then the financial instruments and investments to then kind of mortgages, and then kind of as a real estate investor, we're always investing or selling ourselves as well. I think of sales as, a roller coaster with a lot of peaks and valleys, right? Like there's times where you're just like, this is the best thing ever. And then there's other times where you're like, oh my God, like everyone else in my life was right. This was a terrible decision. I'd love it if you could share with us maybe some of the peaks and valleys you've experienced on that roller coaster of sales.
Yeah, I'm 30. I turned 31 in a couple weeks here, and I've been on commission since I was 15. I did sporting goods before electronics, so it's been since I was 15 years old. One of the first guys that taught me in sales used to say, "You want to have more good days than bad days, and more bad days than quit days." Right. So
that's good.
As financial advising was a perfect example of that. There's days you go from earning a $30,000 paycheck to not eating for 60 to 90 days. You go from, feeling like you're doing the biggest, best financial plan for somebody and they're going to buy everything and they deny you, and you're questioning everything that you've done. So consistency is so important in sales. Stick with it. Pick up, I hear you guys say it all the time, pick up the damn phone, talk to people, keep it rolling, keep the conversations going. And, I'm a big believer in the activity. If I focus on the activity and keep the sales funnel rolling, the deals will flush out. I get some of my new agents on my mortgage team, and they're like, well, I got this deal closing in 2 weeks. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make that. And they're so fixated on that. I was like, who have you called today? Well, I got the deal closing in 2 weeks. Okay, well, 2 weeks after that, how are you eating? Because we need to make that activity today is going to dictate that paycheck coming after the next one. So you got to keep the funnel rolling. And at the end of the day, we're going to give some good advice. I mean, the people that love you the most sometimes take the brunt of your bad days. So make sure, it can be tough as a commission salesperson. So, love the people around you, decompress after work and take care of your family and make sure that try not to let that bad sales day affect your family and your life at home. So.
Mm-hmm. And so I definitely like that little saying about more good days than bad and more bad than quit. But on some of those darker days, was it just that vision of I need to add another comma to the bank account, or what was it the thing that really saw you through or kept you believing in the process? Because again, I 100% agree, especially sales is a contact sport, right? We talk about wholesaling, real estate investing is a contact sport. So it's about going out there and getting in contact with more people. But when your last contact just burned you or made you feel like shit, how did you hype yourself out to go have that next conversation and maybe get shot down again?
Well, I guess for me, I never had a real job. I never had the electronics and the sporting goods were kind of a real job, but they were still commission. I still got to control my hours and time and stuff. So I've been self-employed for so long. And to me, the thought of not picking back up that phone and going and not hustling to get my next deal means I got to go get a real job. So, and that's what I tell the agents on my team now when they're in those bad days. And I say, one bad day in this business what's worse, one bad day in this business or 40 hours a week in a job, right? So that's my motivator. That's my visualization. That's my what keeps me driving is I don't want to go back to real life. I don't want to have to do that 9-to-5 thing, the paychecks, just keep the visualization, keep focusing on what my end goals are and picking up the phone and keep driving forward.
Awesome. Yeah. One thing that I'd love to explore with you, Kyle, is just a little bit of story time. I feel like you just have so much experience with all of these things after 8 years of investing. And I'd love to hear, some of those times where, maybe you went through some challenging times, but you were able to overcome it. Like, do you have any stories that come to mind where maybe someone from the audience could relate to a blunder or, one of those like tough moments that you were able to ultimately turn into a positive outcome?
I'll start with last year with 2020. I went into 2020, with big lofty goals, and there was a few properties that I had that were supposed to be nice and clean refis. And once these refis were done, everything was going to be rosy. It ended up not going very well. And I had to basically stop buying for the first 6 months of 2020. And it completely stopped my growth phase of my business. And that seemed like, to me, I've been buying almost, a deal every 2 months for the past number of years before that. So telling my realtors that, hey, listen, I'm slowing down right now, or slowing things down felt like a major step back for me. But really it ended up being the best thing ever. With COVID, there was enough other things going on in the world. I ended up selling a couple properties, some underperforming properties that were dragging my portfolio down, which ended up allowing me to refinance other properties that I was struggling to refi. And that really put me in an amazing position in the second half of 2020, where I was in a buying position. I was ready to go. And we've talked about a couple of the projects that I have going on. I leveled up in a major, major way at the end of 2020. And I think what I thought at the time were these awful negatives of having to sell a couple of properties and not refinance other properties ended up working out really, really well. So that was the start of 2020 and COVID. There was a couple of weeks or months there where I was really nervous. I mean, when COVID hit, we had a lot of private money borrowed. We were in probably the worst position you can imagine when a global pandemic breaks, and I was nervous for several weeks. And by the end of 2020, we are in the best position we've been going forward. So
Kyle, what you're describing there isn't necessarily that unique to a lot of real estate investors, and yet I noticed that a lot of real estate, there's a whole variety of responses to that, right? How do you keep yourself productive, right? Rather than just waiting, rather than just not sleeping, right? Rather than just staying up late at night, tossing and turning, be like, I can't sleep. I'm just going to stress myself out, work myself up into this entire state where nothing productive is going to be. How do you compartmentalize that?
So I really leaned on my team. The one thing that I did, the one specific refi that I was struggling with was a commercial deal. And I have help and resources in commercial, but I'm not at that point was not a commercial broker expert. I hired a broker to represent me in that transaction. What that did is that was my biggest stressor, and where all my negativity and all my focus was going towards this one thing that I was struggling with. It cost me $22,000 in commission to hire this guy who'd been doing it for 35 years. I hired him to help me there, and I felt like this giant weight was lifted off everywhere else. I was clearer, and then I went focused on everything else and just paid this guy to do it. As he got through that for me and got that problem fixed, by the time he was done there, I was almost through everything else. And I let that one problem, ironically enough, stop me from so many. I feel like this is the cheesiest tagline for your show, but I let that one major problem get in the way of so much other profit. And by hiring someone to support me in that spot and admit that I didn't know as much as I thought I did about it, was really a big, not only weight off my back, but it allowed my whole portfolio to change and grow.
Yeah, it's amazing what actually just using an expert can do. I know just the other week I had a panic call from a YouTuber who had a OSC complaint, And I was like, take a beat, hire a lawyer. I was like, I'm not even going to read about the rules, right? Like, I was like, if I was in your shoes, I would literally just hire that competent, experienced person. And it's really important because, there's this concept of resiliency or, being a Renaissance man capable of doing anything and everything. And I think there's something great about being capable of doing everything, but knowing you don't have to do everything, right? And that oftentimes we are going to choose to not do it, even though we know that we've got the capacity to do it. Again, like, you could probably go and swing a hammer at your own job site if you wanted to. I know I've done it in the past, but like these days, I literally had to get to a point where I gave away all my tools just to keep myself from that temptation.
Yeah, I honestly, I could swing a hammer. I don't know if I'd hit anything, but I could physically swing it around.
That's awesome, man. Well, I definitely really appreciate that story. A lot of people went through trying times in 2020, and not only on top of all of your uncertainty with those refis, like you had also a global pandemic going on. So it just adds to the uncertainty of the whole situation. So
let's not forget about the 6-month pregnant wife.
I was just going to mention
that.
So, that was a whole other
building your dream house, right?
Building the dream. Guys, like I said, the worst possible time. We were at a highest leverage point I've ever been when they announced and I had a clear plan out, but when they announced it, I had a 6-month pregnant wife. My dream house was being built and didn't look like it was going to be done in time. Our house had already sold. We were homeless for 2 weeks. I think I had over 20 properties and I was homeless for 2 weeks. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It was crazy. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's so wild. Like and in those moments, like it's hard to see the finish line. So it's really great that you were able to actually get someone in place that allowed you to solve all of the other problems that were going on.
It was great.
Totally. Now, one thing that I would actually love to explore with you, because you brought this up a little bit earlier on in our chat, was with your goals, you kind of transitioned from an area where money was really important, and now other things like your time, your family, and just having control over your day is more important. So what is that level? Because a lot of people have these monetary goals, and then this becomes a common theme where people switch their priorities. So you're fairly young and you've had a lot of success for your age. So how do you know when enough is enough, or how do you know when you switch your priorities?
I think for me it was having a child. That was because up until then that's really only in the past 8 months since he's been born that I've really started to value my time and my weekends and my evenings. And before that, I was on the phone 24/7, evenings, weekends, call me whenever, not nonstop, and I was physically present, but not mentally present with my little guy. And when you start to see your child grow, it's pretty crazy. And I know you guys, and I feel like the old guy talking about this, because I feel like people have told me this my whole life and I never listened to it. But when you wake up in the morning and your child is different than he was the day before, it really starts to dawn on you that not only do I need to physically make money and have a lifestyle, I need to be physically present in my day. And so for me, it was probably 8 months ago when he was born that I started really wow, I need to. I used to think when I was emailing and listening to Chelsea talk, I was paying attention, but I wasn't. Right? So I need to physically be present, physically be mentally present, put my phone away sometimes. And that doesn't mean I still don't work like crazy, but when I'm spending time with my family, it's the phone's down. We're spending time together, and we're physically, mentally enjoying this time. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really, really appreciate that you've highlighted that transition, because that's been a trend in several people that we've interviewed up to this point, where they transition, they get to a certain level of success, and then they transition to focus on the smaller things or on their time demand in life. So I just wanted to highlight that with you, because it's just a a very specific point, it seems, that you transition from, I've gotten to this level of success, now what? And what's next? And for you, it sounds like it's been that time with your family.
Yeah.
So just kind of coming full circle now, you've got a team of mortgage agents that work for you. What are some of the common problems you see them encountering where you just kind of shake your head and you're like, man, you guys are like overlooking an opportunity here? Anything sort of come to mind where you find a lot of new salespeople or specifically a lot of new mortgage agents struggle to wrap their head around something that actually really isn't even a problem?
Number one issue with every new mortgage agent is they're far too transactional. They're far too focused on one deal. And at the end of the day, a mortgage client, especially in the investor space, is like that client is doing several transactions with you every year. So they're focused. Let me give you an example. Some of the lenders that are best for real estate investors pay the worst for mortgage brokers. So the compensation that we get from the best lenders for investors pay us the least versus some of the other ones. So they're like, well, I want to do the first deal. We're going to put them over here because I get paid more. And I was like, that's not, you're missing it, man. We're going to make a little bit less on this deal, but this person is now set up to do 5 deals. We're going to make a lot more money. So it's on the transactional side. The other thing that I see a lot of new agents happening with new agents is, and I think this is really prevalent to, wholesalers or any type of real estate investors, is they let their clients bully them because they're not confident. They let their clients say, well, I don't need that paperwork. Just tell me that I'm approved. No, we need to get you the paperwork. Well, my bank said I was fine. Okay, well, there's a reason why you're calling me now, because your bank doesn't have that many rental properties, or your bank let you down. So you're calling me now. I need that paperwork. And I have a new agent on my team just the other day. He's like, well, I feel like if I ask the client for that, they're not gonna do business with me. Well, then walk away. I said, you got to do the takeaway. You got to say, if you're not going to get me that paperwork, I wish you the best of luck. Have a good day. And he did it. And the client's like, well, no. I'll call my accountant and get it. Okay. So there's so many people when they're new in any sales career or any real estate business, they let other people intimidate them into thinking that there's a shortcut to this. There's no shortcut to mortgage planning. There's no shortcut to mortgage paperwork. It sucks. And I tell every client that when the other broker asked me for a lot of paperwork, I was like, well, I'm going to ask for more because they have most of your paperwork. I'm going to need more than they asked for. So if you think you're coming to me to get less paperwork, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you breaking that down for us, because I definitely see it all the time. And at the same time, full disclosure here, I will also test the boundaries with a salesperson, right? So like definitely with a new mortgage person, I'm going to see what they're going to let me get away with, right? Like you're naturally going to test those boundaries. So it is important to understand exactly, what sort of business are we willing to do, right? Like, and, it's not that big of a deal in this industry, but it still is a thing where like someone doesn't want to do their fin track and you're like, hey, well, I'm not that sort of guy. I'm not going to do those sort of deals, right? Like whether we're talking a realtor, a mortgage agent, whatever. And it's really important you understand what sort of business, what sort of clients do I want? Do I want those serial repeat clients where I can build a long-term relationship? Or am I just, the McDonald's, an assembly line here, just cranking out mortgages, properties, wholesale deals, whatever it happens to be? And again, circling back to what we originally talked about, if you understand why you set out on this path in the first place, it will often become a lot easier to make sure you stay on the right course. So what does the future hold for you now, Kyle? I know we were talking about a couple projects on the horizon. How do you decide which new problems to go solve? Like, when do you decide it's time to go take on new projects?
Yeah. So my vision in the real estate world now is the people who are going to make money and stick around and be relevant and profitable for a long time are the creators. So people who are creating solutions in the real estate industry. So I'll give you a couple examples of that. Wholesaling. Wholesaling is creating deals that didn't exist in the mainstream on the MLS. You guys are finding deals outside of the main source. You're creating new inventory. That is a high profit solution in the market. For me, I looked at the wholesaling space, and I think anybody who's starting out in real estate should start in the wholesaling space. But frankly, you guys work way too hard. You guys are working. You guys do. I appreciate how much work goes into wholesaling. So where I wanted to get into is I wanted to get into the creating funding for wholesalers. So I specialize in creative financing. So that's funding deals at loan to values that most people would never touch, because we work with quality borrowers that can execute on these deals. So we do aggressive loan to values. For me, I was doing the BRRRR model in the multifamily space, which I still believe is one of the best investments out there, but you're not creating any new inventory. So where I moved into is the development side. We're building and developing not only purpose-built rental units, but condos and homes. So across the country, we're in an inventory shortage. Most economists, most experts in the space will tell you the reason why real estate is going up is supply and demand. There's not enough supply. So I want to be on the creation side. I'm creating new rental inventory, creating new sale inventory. So development, sales, as well as this is maybe a bit of a stretch in the creative idea, but we're creating vacation rental experiences. Canadian tourism is going to continue to be very, very lucrative for the next several years. So we're taking rundown old properties and creating beautiful vacation experiences. We're doing a ghetto, I'm going to say it's a ghetto-ass motel. We're turning it into a beautiful, beautiful space that went from you wouldn't even want to stop your car there to you're going to come from Toronto and spend $600 a night to be here now. So my vision, my growth, and where I believe the opportunity in real estate is for the creators.
Yeah, I love that. And there definitely is huge opportunity there, right? Peter Thiel, the billionaire, talks about the simple concept of business is create value and capture a percentage of it. And with a lot of the, innovative strategies you're talking about, there is an opportunity to create a lot more value with those. And because it is new, because it is kind of bleeding edge, it's perceived by a lot of more entrenched investors as being riskier. And so because of that, they naturally don't want to get into it. And that ends up creating the greater opportunity to capture a larger percentage of that value you initially create, which results in the bigger margins or more profits. So yeah, that makes total sense to me. And I think that's a really exciting angle to be approaching.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was going to wrap up, so you take it.
Oh no, I'm just so excited about this cottage condo idea that you have, Kyle. Like it just is so innovative. And one thing that I just want to highlight on and that I love that you've done in all of those examples that you gave there is that all of those were problems, right? Those were problems to so many other people that no one wanted to touch. And you've just completely turned it into a profit for yourself because of that. And I really love that you're innovating and creating in that world. And one thing that I'd love to actually just like explore with you just a bit further as kind of a final thought would be, is there any other avenues right now in real estate that you think are not currently being explored, that are huge opportunities that are being missed, that you've seen and maybe not taken on yourself, or that you think that it is an opportunity that someone will be taking on in the near future?
Well, I do think there's going to be opportunity in the conversion space of older motels and commercial space into residential residential solutions. So whether that means converting a motel into long-term rentals or converting a motel into cottage condos like we're doing, whether I think there's going to be in some of the older, then this isn't a new philosophy, but some of the more older commercial buildings, I can see those being converted into really cool loft style condos. So I don't think commercial real estate is going to fully die. There's always going to be demand to some level, but I think some of the older stock commercial real estate there might be an opportunity to repurpose that. If people are in an older building, they might be able to get into a new modern space at a good deal right now. So which means that older commercial stock might be sitting there. And I'm thinking like those brown brick buildings that could be converted into cool condos. So anything like conversions, it's once again, this isn't a new thing, but the laneway home, garden suites, people taking existing densification, existing properties and densifying. Cities do not want to sprawl as much because of the cost of servicing, policing, fire, all the costs that go into it. So the more you can densify in communities, I think there's an opportunity to earn a really good margin.
Absolutely. Now, because you've been through it, like with this motel, what kind of city permissions or zoning elements do you have to go through in order to get that residential built?
We're still considered residential with what we're doing, and our motel fell under residential, commercial residential, and restaurant bar. So everything we're doing actually falls in the zoning. I will tell you, if you go into most small towns and you buy I'm going to say it again, the ghetto ass motel in town, and you're going to spend some money on it, they're going to work with you. You're not buying the crown jewel of town trying to do something crazy with it. You're buying the problem of the town and turning it into a profit center. I could go for days with this and turn it into a profit center to not only drive people to the community, but spend money. And like this specific project that we're doing, when you're coming in from London, it's one of the first things you see on the left side. And we're turning this into this, rundown, decrepit spot into this beautiful, a destination for the community, right? So when you're solving, and we might be going over time here, but I want to give you one of my first mentors, Ray, who's an incredible guy. He told me a story of he was buying this property up in Northern Ontario. It was a sixplex with 2 commercial units downstairs. Everybody got it under contract, tried to go to the city and said, we want to convert these to residential. The city would not let them. Nobody would let them convert these 2 commercial units to residential. Ray picked up this property, got it at a ridiculous discount, went down to the city and said, I want to convert these to residential. They said, no. He said, what would you let me do? And they said, we want commercial, we want commercial, we want commercial. We also need barrier-free residential. Oh, what's that? Wheelchair accessible residential. So if I convert these 2 commercial units into barrier-free residential, will you let me? The city approved it on the spot. So that's a perfect example of when you're solving the city's problems, when you're solving the issues that they have in their community, they're going to bend rules for you and do things for you that they might not do for other people because you're solving their problem.
Yeah, that's an amazing example, Kyle. I really love it. Just really focusing on, how can I solve this issue that I'm encountering rather than simply throwing up your hands at the first obstacle that gets thrown in your way. And so I think that's a perfect point to kind of wrap up this podcast. So I appreciate it, Kyle. If people want to follow along with you on your journey, can they? And where should they do so?
Yeah, it's at KAFORD_7 on Instagram, BREMACrealestate.com. And then the KyleFordMortgageTeam.com as well. Happy to help people in the mortgage business. I will say, if you're looking to work with this myself, I do have a team, so I have lots of agents that help me with deals. I'm predominantly focused on development and private lending right now. But if you're new and looking for an investor-focused mortgage broker, happy to bring you on board to my team and have one of my agents take care of you.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, Kyle.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!